Good evening and welcome to Horror Historian. My name is Amanda and tonight we'll be discussing the Death Game franchise Escape Room, a series that I rather like, but I know is not terribly popular. These movies were directed by Adam Robitel, and actually, looking at his background, I'm a little surprised that I didn't already know his name. He directed The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is at something I will cover at some point, and it's just a fantastic found footage movie. He has also directed Insidious The Last Key, which I really thought was good and made the point The Red Door made, but better. He wrote for Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension, but we won't hold that against him too much. There have been a lot of escape room movies that have come up over the years, and I'm not that surprised. We all saw the movie Saw and decided that it sounded like it would be fun. I just know I'd be terrible at escape rooms, but they sound like they'd be fun. Out of all of them, though, I think these two movies are just leagues above everyone else, and it's not just because it's the only ones with sequels. Escape Room was released on January 4th, 2019, an extremely rare win for my birthday, by the way. It's hard out here for the horror girlies that were born in winter months because the movies that come out for your birthday are usually pretty dog shit. This movie was written by Bragi F. Schutt and Maria Melnick. Schutt was also worked on The Voyage of the Last Meter, which I have conflicting feelings about. Melnick has worked on episodes of American Gods. The stars of this movie are Taylor Russell, Logan Miller, Deborah Ann Wall, Tyler Labine, and Jay Ellis. It's an ensemble cast, so it seems fair to mention all the big ones. Taylor Russell is blowing up right now. She started out in Lost in Space and has made her way to working with Timothy Chalamet in Bones and All, and I promise I will watch it at some point. It's amazing because she started out playing Lark Voorhees in the unauthorized Saved by the Bell story. Logan Miller is most known for A Dog's Purpose and We Summon the Darkness. Deborah Ann Woll, which I do need to see that by the way. Deborah Ann Woll is most known for True Blood, but also is apparently a wicked good dungeon master, so good for her. Taylor Labine is most known for Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Reaper, and New Amsterdam, which is a great show by the way. And actually, I really love his character now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, Nick Dodani is most known for Atypical and Murphy Brown. Jay Ellis is most known for Insecure, Top Gun Maverick, and Freaky Tales. The movie opens with an unlikely survivor, Ben, making his way into a room and desperately starting to look around. The walls start to move, something that terrifies me, closing in on him as he desperately searches to solve a puzzle that I couldn't even begin to solve. We're getting ahead of ourselves, though. Let's meet our characters. All of our main characters are victims of events when they were the only survivors. They had been brought together to find out who was the ultimate survivor by the group Minos. Our main character, who has not been, is Zoe. She is an incredibly quiet and timid college student, and she is also a genius. I don't think that anyone took that into consideration when adding her to the games. Her event was a plane crash that left her the sole survivor, and unfortunately, she had been traveling with her mom. She lived for a week on her own after the accident, and we can make some assumptions about how she lived. Ben, who is always just kind of a main character in both movies, he's more of a damsel in distress. He's a guy that has gone through a lot of trauma, and it was very public. He works at a grocery store, but had been put in the back because of what happened to him. People don't want to see him every day. He was drunk with his friends and driving home before the holidays, where he survived, but all of his friends died in the accident. Amanda, hey girl, is also in both movies, but not in the bulk of either of them. She is an Iraq veteran who has a bucket load of PTSD due to having survived an IED blast that left her with a serious fear of fire and scarring. Jason is a bag of dicks and makes a lot of money working as a day trader. He survived being stuck in the ocean with a friend when it was extremely cold. He says that his friend lost it, stole the jacket, and eventually disappeared into the waves. But I kind of think he killed the guy. Mike is currently working as a trucker, and he's a little bit of a dumbass. Mike had been working as a miner when there was a cave in. He was stuck down there with a few of the other guys and had to hear them take their last breaths. Danny is a big fan of escape rooms and was more than happy to be there. He's pretty much delusional for the first little part of the games, believing that everything that they go through is just fine. So it's fitting that shit gets real when he dies. They all arrive at a building, and we get the general feeling for how everyone is just kind of going to react. Zoe is definitely nervous, definitely uncomfortable in this situation. Jason is a dick. Amanda calls him on being a dick and is generally pretty nice to everyone. Ben is immediately kind of a victim to Jason's nonsense, kind of an obvious victim, too. Danny is just happy to be there. He loves his escape rooms. He's thrilled, and Mike is present. It doesn't take long before they realize that something isn't quite right, especially when Ben goes to go smoke before the games really begin and pulls the doorknob off, revealing an oven dial. When Zoe thinks that she has a clue to get them out of the room, she ends up activating what they are escaping from. They are in a giant oven, something that was specifically covered to attack Amanda, and it does a number on her. She does recover, but she is really shaken up when it starts to get hotter and hotter in the room. Zoe wastes a little bit of the water they need to try and give her something to drink to calm down. It gets really hot in the room by the time that they escape, finding a tunnel that was activated by putting full cups of water on the table, which Ben saves them with. Anyway, they all get through, no one that hurt, except for Amanda, who would very much like to quit once they enter the next room. They are in an entirely different room this time. A huge room that is much more open than where they had been. It's a cabin on the side of an icy pond in the winter. This one is definitely set to trigger right at Ben and Jason, and they are on edge this entire room, and they're at each other as well. Zoe is a little more on her game at this point, wanting to get this all over with without anyone getting hurt. She's really good at puzzles, and this is working out well for her. They find a code that is meant to keep them warm one by one, which is definitely aimed at Jason. My conspiracy theories are only slightly more insane than the ones that Zoe will have in the second movie. She's the right one though. So, anyway, they pull up a key inside of a block of ice. Ben is being a dick and tosses a lighter onto the ice, forcing Danny to go get it. Except he doesn't get it. The ice breaks and he falls. A current is revealed under the water, which rushes him away. They are completely powerless to save him. They can see his dead body under the ice if they look. It drastically changes the tone without Danny because they're treating this more seriously. Mostly because Danny isn't around to explain things that way anymore. Not that he could have, even if he had survived, because things are getting weird. They do get to the key and they do get out of the room. The next room is directly aimed at Zoe. It entirely has everything to do with heights, and honestly, I'd be freaked out too. Jason is still doing a lot of blaming Ben for Danny's death, but it was bound to happen to someone at some point. They still need to work together, so they're all going to need to get over their differences. The next room is a bar, except everything is upside down. They basically need to find the 8 ball so that they can move on to the next room. But the problem arises when the music stops playing. There's a piece of the floor just falls to emptiness. Amanda takes on a bulk of the actual movement, with Zoe doing a puzzle in the corner to assist. The guys are there to watch. Amanda saves the day, but at the same time, she runs out of floor. Everyone else is able to escape, but she assures Zoe that she's okay before she falls. Zoe is really torn up about this. She kind of snaps when they end up in the next room, which is a room filled with their exact hospital rooms. They finally have a conversation about why they all think they were invited to this specific place. They put together that they were all placed in this situation because rich people wanted to bet on which one of them would survive. Who is going to be the person that survives out of all these final survivors? Zoe kind of goes off and does her own thing. She doesn't want to play the games and she is refusing to do so. The guys ignore her pretty much, and it's all played as though she's lost it and just doesn't make it to the next room, dying. That's not what happens, but she puts on a really good performance. Jason and Mike find an EKG machine and it tells them to get their heart rate down. Mike ends up being the guinea pig because Jason is a big bully. Nothing really works until Jason comes up with the idea of shocking Mike to get his heart rate down really low, then bringing him back. It just kills him. And even as the gas starts filling the room, it turns out Jason can just calm down and lower his heart rate, so we didn't need to do any of that. Ben doesn't want to leave Zoe behind as she's still swinging like this IV rod around and looking for a way to break through the room. But Jason doesn't give him much of a choice. He might need someone to do the hard work again, and he's not going to sacrifice himself. If there's a point to the next room, we don't really get the story behind it. Ben and Jason end up touching a hallucinogenic substance that leads them to straight tripping, and they fight because that's something that they have kind of been poking at the entire movie, but they finally just beat the hell out of each other. I will say it was really surprising that Ben is the one that survived the fight. He makes it to the next room, which is where the movie really started. He somehow manages to survive entirely on his own and meets the Game Master, a guy that also expresses his genuine shock that Ben had been the one to survive. Of course, he doesn't know that Zoe is coming. Zoe uses an oxygen tank to survive the gas that was pumped to the room. She waited until a cleanup crew came through, and that's when she got up, took a gun, and took out the other members of the team. And that's when she finds a much easier way to meet the Game Master. There is nothing left of the games that they played by the time that Zoe returns with the police and Ben. There is no sign of the games that she is claiming, and it's not helped that Ben was drugged, so there's the police have an excuse. She solves the puzzle of the name Dr. Wu Tan Yu. It's an anagram of no way out. 6 months later, and they're both still doing pretty good, actually. Ben has made big strides in his career. He's much more confident. Zoe is also more confident, but she is still obsessed with finding out who Minos is and putting an end to everything. We are then left with a tease of an escape room on a plane, with Minos trying to perfect the game that they would play there. It is teased in this movie and the second movie, but they never actually go through with it, which is cruel. It looks cool. They know that it looks cool. Is this movie absolutely impossible? Yes. Do I care? Not one bit. It's fun and it's puzzle solving. Not something that I think I'm great at, but it's fun to watch other people do it. Taylor Russell is really great in this, and that really brings a bit more of a serious approach to what's happening. Zoe is smart and a little bit crazy, which is something that I can really appreciate. It's not really a scary movie, so I think it could be a solid introduction to horror. There's not a lot of gore, most of the deaths either happen off screen or are not particularly detailed. Escape Room Tournament of Champions was released in 2021, which is an insane turnabout. It made $65.8 million, which is a pretty good return back on the budget. A lot of the same people are involved with this one that were in the first one. Taylor Russell, Logan Miller, Deborah Ann Wool, Adam Robitel, Will Holmley, and Mariah Melnick all return. There were a few new writers, such as Daniel Tuch and Oren Uziel. Tuch is most known for Hand of God. Uziel is most known for 22 Jump Street, The Cloverfield Paradox, and Mortal Kombat. The new actors are Holland Roden, Indy Moore, Thomas Cockrell, and Carlos Oliveira. Roden is most known for Teen Wolf, Channel Zero, Butcher's Block, and No Escape, which is another escape room and not nearly as good as this one. Moore is most known for Pose, Nimona, and Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom. Cockrell is most known for Billionaire Boys Club and The Gilded Age. Oliviero is most known for being a part of Menudo. He is also known for Step Up, High Water. The movie opens up giving us a recap of the previous movie and introducing us to the Zoe of this movie. She is going to a therapist who expresses concerns about Zoe being stuck in the game and that maybe it's more of a mental game than the literal game. Ben is still very much in her life and supporting her. They had originally been planning to fly to New York, but because of Zoe's accident, she has a hard time getting on the plane. She realizes that she is using the plane as an excuse to not end this once and for all, so they drive there. He's definitely reluctant to be following her, but feels as though he owes her his life, and he might be loyal to a fault. They get to the abandoned building that the coordinates had led to. There's nothing there now, but Zoe does end up having her necklace stolen from her. They run after the guy, but end up getting in a train, having failed to get it back. There are a few other people on the train, none of them paying much attention to one another, and one of them on the phone. When his call cuts out and things start to seem weird, they all come to the realization that they are back in a Minos game. This is the Tournament of Champions, after all. Obviously, Zoe and Ben were part of the final survivor group escape rooms, but each of them had their own little specialization for why they were picked to wit in these escape rooms. Theo was killed before he can tell us what his group was, but he does die on his wife's birthday, and that has to suck. Brianna's group were a bunch of influencers. I believe that she is specifically a travel influencer. She's a lot more afraid of to disobey the rules than I thought she would be, but I did like her character. Nathan and his group are all priests. This definitely led to him having some kind of chosen one belief because of it. He makes a lot of really stupid decisions that eventually does get him killed. Rachel does not want to share with the rest of the group, but we do eventually find out that what her entire deal is. It actually explains a lot of her cold and freaked out behavior for the first half of this movie. So she describes her group as a bunch of pain freaks, and it turns out that she does not experience physical pain. She could definitely experience the damage, but she cannot feel it. They escape the train car, which had become electrified. Theo obviously doesn't survive, but poor guy. The next room takes place inside of a bank. They are on one end, a laser beam security system chessboard is between them and the bank vault door, which is how they escape. I'm trying to find directions to get across the chessboard, and I'm choosing to describe it like that. If they make the wrong move, then some very strong lasers light the room up. Nathan decides to just go for it, leaving behind little treats to guide them to the other side. But when they run out of directions, he just goes for it. This is mostly going fine until he slips and falls, smacking the back of his head on the desk to knock himself out. He is so lucky that he didn't end up getting himself cut in half, and that Rachel and Brianna were able to save him from his own stupidity. Realistically, Zoe probably shouldn't have made it through. There was no time left by the time she got through. But I'm not going to complain about it because she is my favorite character. It was pretty cool, so I will give them that. Everyone gets out, but two are not going to be so lucky in the next room, which is honestly the scariest one to me. I really don't. I really hadn't ever considered how much quicksand traumatized me growing up, even though I never experienced it.
They have to get out of there as fast as possible. If they don't, they're going to be dragged down into, I guess, crushed in like the sand pit ultimately. Rachel ends up being sucked down into the sand, and Nathan jumps in to save her.
He is successful in saving her, but no one is willing to do the same for Nathan, and honestly, I don't blame him. He is way too risky for them to have around. The man was allergic to making a good choice. There ends up being two ways to escape from the room. One is inside of a refrigerator, the other is the moon, where Zoe has managed to break and find a way out. Brianna and Rachel were much closer to the refrigerator than the hole, but Ben manages to convince them to go to the moon. However, in doing so, he ends up being sucked down. Brianna, Zoe, and Rachel crawl through the ducts and they think that they're safe. They can hear the sounds of the city just outside of where they are. When they get out, it turns out it's just another room. I'm pretty sure that the refrigerator would have led them to the same room. Either way, it looks like a regular street with a few signs that they are still in the game.
Every couple of minutes, it starts to rain, except the rain is acid and starts to melt through everything in the little cityscape. The only safe space is inside of a taxi, but only one of them ends up being able to get into the taxi.
Brianna and Rachel are left behind to be milked by the acid raining down on them. Rachel was really solid in this one, not at all bothered by the acid melting through her skin. It would have eventually caused her some serious health issues, but hey, the no pain thing means that she's superhuman. Zoe is so tired by being the only survivor and ends up falling asleep in the back of the taxi. She's dropped into the next room, which is a kid's bedroom. She finds a diary that belongs to a girl named Sonia. This has been a running theme throughout the movie, mentions of a girl named Sonia. It's also not really tailored towards anything that any of them had gone through. It just seems like a totally random, unrelated story. But it turns out that Sonia was the name of Amanda's daughter from the last movie, which they never told us. Even though it was absolutely impossible that Amanda survived a fall like that, she's there. This is all a way to try and force Zoe to join Minos and make games for them. She would be great at it. She does really have a fantastic mind for games, for puzzles.
It is also revealed that Ben is actually alive, although he is in danger once again. I love that he's just kind of this damsel in distress in this movie. He's being used to try and force Zoe into joining Minos as a game maker, but he encourages her to resist, and she does that. Instead, she decides that she's not going to be playing these games anymore, which is the same thing that she came to the conclusion in the last movie.
Amanda signs on, even though she is clearly very traumatized by what Minos has done to her, and it seems as though they still have her daughter by the end of the movie. Ben nearly drowns, but they literally blow that sucker up. In a shocking twist, they are able to break through the building and make their way back to the real world. They go to the police, and they have no other choice but to believe them, and Amanda, um, is alive, like her death had been faked in the last movie, and now she's there. It's hard to argue with them now. And they also have proof. They are believed, and it's making national news. Zoe and Ben decide to fly back now that they feel as though they are finally free. Yes, all of Minos hasn't been caught, but it's a much safer world for them.
Or is it? While they're on the plane, Zoe starts to feel as though something is going on. There are a lot of things around her going on, and it reminds her of the games, and it reminds her of her past. And then she thinks she sees her therapist on the plane.
Ben catches on that something has happened and starts to ask what is going on. A voice comes over the intercom and mocks them for ending up in another game. And then the movie ends while the plane starts to decline. Everything really had been too easy, and it's too late for Zoe to realize this. And I really want to see the playing game, but I feel as though this might be the last movie. I think it made enough money to warrant a sequel, but it wasn't like an exorbitant amount of money. I absolutely love to have another movie, though. I like Zoe a lot, and I love her dynamic with Ben. I really just want to see the goddamn playing game either way. I need to know what that plan. Like, what's the plan? It's not the most amazing series in the world. I can understand that will not be everyone's cup of tea.
Thank you so much for watching. This has been Amanda, a horror historian. Would I survive? No, I'm not surviving this. I'm not good at puzzles. I don't do well in high stress situations. I would not last long. I would not be useful either. So it probably would be better if I just died early.